Dialogue in narratives. Dialogue is conversation between two or more characters in a story. In this video, we'll explore why authors use dialogue and how to write it effectively. Dialogue is important because it can bring a story to life. Dialogue allows the reader to get to know the characters of a story. If the reader doesn't feel strongly about the characters, they're not going to be interested in the story. Without dialogue, a story can end up feeling like a dry summary of events, rather than a compelling narrative. For these reasons, dialogue is a very important tool writers use. We're going to look at these 5 ways we can use this tool to bring a story to life. Here are 2 passages of text that we're going to improve using dialogue. Number 1. Use dialogue to develop characters. Dialogue allows the reader to hear the characters' voices. The reader learns a lot about the characters through what they say, how they say it, and to whom they choose to speak. How does the character respond to situations? With humor, anger, kindness, or sarcasm? These all provide engaging details that keep the reader hooked. Let's have a look at our first passage of text. Here it is. The last rays of sunlight faded. Training had finished, but Liam continued running laps around the field as the coach gathered up the last of the footballs. Let's see how we can use dialogue to further develop the characters, especially Liam's. What if we change the passage to include this dialogue? Training finished almost an hour ago. You said that I need to step it up, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to let last season's mistakes happen again. Here's our passage rewritten to include our new dialogue. Take a moment to read the passage and consider how these lines might help to develop the characters. These 3 lines of dialogue tell us quite a bit about Liam. This line emphasizes how much time has passed since training ended, which highlights Liam's dedication. It also contrasts Liam's actions with the rest of the team, who have finished up, making his effort stand out even more. This line shows Liam's commitment to taking his coach's advice seriously, and highlights that he is determined to improve by the way he echoes his coach's words. And this line of dialogue provides insight into Liam's motivations by hinting at a backstory. It suggests that last season didn't end as Liam had hoped. His determination stems not only from the coach's advice, but also from the lingering disappointment of last season. These examples show how dialogue can help develop characters. Let's move on to the next reason dialogue can be so powerful. Number 2. Good dialogue has the power to draw the reader into the scene, making them feel as though they are right there with the characters. Compare our passage without dialogue to our passage with dialogue. The passage without provides a simple description of the scene for the reader. It makes the reader feel as though they're observing from a distance. The second paragraph makes the reader feel like an active participant in the story, as if they are right there on the field with Liam and his coach. Number 3. Dialogue can be used to advance the plot. Through dialogue, we can reveal important information. We can build tension or create conflict, and we can also drive the action that moves the story forward. Let's have a look at this passage. Liam's father pulled the car into the driveway. He asked Liam if he was sure he didn't want to go to college. Liam told his father that he wasn't as smart as Emma and that he wasn't cut out for college. There's no dialogue in this passage, and so at the moment it sounds more like a summary of a scene. Let's use dialogue to change that and to advance the plot. Let's add these lines of dialogue. You're really not planning on going to college? Emma's the one with the brains. I'm not cut out for that. Here's our passage rewritten to include our new dialogue. Take a moment to read and think about how the dialogue we've added helps to advance the plot. The dialogue between Liam and his father advances the plot by creating tension and hinting at a deeper conflict about Liam's future. It raises questions about his reluctance to pursue college and his self-doubt, making his decision a key turning point in the story. Number 4. Dialogue is important for establishing and building relationships between characters. One of the ways this dialogue from earlier helped move the plot forward was by establishing the relationship between Liam and his father. Is the relationship between Liam and his father the same as the relationship between Liam and his mother? Probably not. How about the relationship between Liam and his sister? Certainly not. Consider how dialogue could be used to show the relationships between the characters in your story, and how these relationships could progress the plot. Authentic relationships between characters make stories more engaging. They allow characters to grow and shape the story's direction. And as we have seen, they provide opportunities to create conflict and progress the plot. Number 5. Dialogue can help set tone and mood in a story. It can create tension from heated arguments, warmth revealed through sincere words, or mystery heightened by cryptic remarks. Dialogue can also add emotion to scenes, allowing the reader to feel the character's joy, frustration, anger, or affection through their words and interactions. Let's now move on to some important tips to remember when thinking about dialogue. It's important we avoid the boring parts of conversations. While we do want the dialogue in our writing to sound real, we don't want it sounding too real. In real-life conversations, we often include details that aren't very important, or we go off on tangents and use filler words like you know, or like. Dialogue in our writing should be more focused, sharing only what drives the story or reveals character. Dialogue should sound smoother than in real life. Less is more when it comes to dialogue. Dialogue isn't included just for the sake of it. Each line should have a purpose, whether it's progressing the plot, giving insight into characters, or establishing relationships. Here's a passage with some dialogue that doesn't add much to the scene and should be removed to make the writing more focused. Which lines do you think we should get rid of? This dialogue has a purpose. It reveals the coach's concern for Liam's well-being. It also starts to build tension by highlighting the importance of preparation for the big game. These lines, however, don't really have much purpose. If we leave these out, our writing will become more focused and direct. Here's the passage rewritten with the unnecessary dialogue removed. When you're writing conversations between characters or editing your writing, ask yourself whether a line of dialogue serves a purpose If not, leave it out. Now let's move on to dialogue tags. Dialogue tags tell the reader who is speaking and how they're speaking. Said is most commonly used, but it's important not to overuse it. Other verbs like shouted, whispered, asked, or begged can add more nuance and communicate additional information about the tone or emotion behind the dialogue. Sometimes, dialogue tags can be left out. This can be useful because overusing dialogue tags can disrupt the flow of a conversation and remind readers that they're just reading a story. While it's not always possible to leave them out, when the speaker is clear from the context, the dialogue can stand on its own, making the exchange feel more natural and immersive. Here's an example. Most of the lines of dialogue don't require tags because the context makes it clear who's speaking. This allows the conversation to flow naturally and keeps the reader engaged. By reducing the reliance on dialogue tags, the focus shifts to the characters themselves. This is where it becomes important to give each character a unique voice. Characters should speak in ways that reflect their personalities, backgrounds, and emotions. This makes a character's dialogue feel more authentic and distinct. Everyone has their own unique way of communicating. Make sure characters do too. You can test this by asking yourself this: is the speaker clear from the dialogue alone? Now it's time to write some dialogue of your own. You might like to use one of these pictures as inspiration. Write a few lines of dialogue that develop characters, establish relationships, or help move the story forward. Use your imagination to think about what might have happened before and what could happen next. Remember to cut anything that doesn't serve a purpose. Keep it focused. Share your work in the comments. I'd love to see how you went. Also, take a moment to read others' work and discuss what their dialogue reveals about the characters, relationships, and story. Thanks for following along, and I hope to see you soon for the next lesson. EasyTeaching.net